Hello, I'm Daniela Mellen. Today's video is the third in the Textured Elements series for slow stitching. Now each video is standalone. You can watch them in any order, it doesn't matter. But each video showcases a way that you can use fabric and thread, and occasionally beads or some other object, to add an interesting element to your slow stitching pieces. It's just a fun way to manipulate fabric to give texture and enhance it. And today is the first time that I'm going to show you how I slash fabric and then stitch it down again. In today's video, it kind of creates a very interesting textured pattern, and I really love it, and I hope you do too. Now in the video, I show how I use it in my slow stitching pieces, and then I show you the process of creating it. And I'm creating a series of tags that become my tools. I store them with my work, and when I'm doing my stitched pieces, I can refer back to them to decide if I want to add an element, and if one of those elements from those tags resembles something that will really enhance my work. So today we'll look at the piece in use, and then I'll show you how I do it to store in my tag for reference. For today's texture piece, we're going to make this little slashed fabric panel here. If you use multiple pieces and you tack them down in a certain way, it looks kind of very interesting. And if you just do two, it's just a kind of a peek inside. So this would be a cute way to hide something in there, maybe some interesting printed fabric or the like. So to do this, I have my tag that I'm just going to use as reference, because I'm making a reference tag so that I can go back when I do my stitching if I want to add an element. On this piece, it was already put on this quilted fabric and then embellished accordingly. But to the actual process is what I'm going to do on the tag. This works really well with an interesting piece of fabric hidden underneath. So I have this little scrap, very pretty printed fabric that's quite bright and quite a contrast to the cover that I'm going to put on it, which is just this. So I cut these to size to fit my little fabric tag just for reference, but I'd make this whatever size I wanted for the piece that I'm using. The piece that goes on top, I just want to make sure the slits do not go all the way across. They just cover enough of the area inside to peek out and show that fabric hidden underneath. So I make my lines with this heat erasable marker, and then because this is a rectangle shape, I'm just going to fold it in half. And then I just cut my slits, and I like to do this ahead of time. So I'll just cut my slits here. And again, those marks will disappear. I'm going to hold it down, making sure that I put the piece underneath with pretty fabric and it's well hidden. Then I just tack it down with a single pin. I take a thread that's knotted already, and I'm just using the same color thread of my top piece. And again, you could use a solid piece underneath and this top piece be your fabric, your printed fabric. And I'm just going to stitch all the way around. So I'll do that and speed this along, and you can choose the distance you make it. You just want to make it at least 1/4 inch from the end of those slashes. So I'll stitch all the way around. So now that I have the perimeter stitched all the way around, I want to stitch in between each of these slash marks. And again, I'm just going to use a straight stitch, but you can vary this stitch to make this your own. I'm just trying to anchor that background fabric as well as create just this interest of these straight lines. And I'll do this behind all the slash marks. So now I have all my channels stitched down just with straight stitches. I'm going to take a hot iron and just get rid of these little pen marks here just by holding it down. And now I have these little channels that I could play with to really pull that fabric. And this is where you can really play with it. If I just stitch one side down, I get one look, but I like to stitch both sides and just tack them down. So once again, I take a threaded needle with thread that matches my top fabric, and now I'm just going to take these two areas and make a single stitch in between that combines those two fabric pieces. And I'll do this the length of my piece. You can obviously do 2 stitches if you want. You could do stitches on either side. I just like the way this kind of offers a little peek into that fabric on the background. And as you see, it starts to develop that interesting texture, kind of a geometric shape, and it's very unusual. I just pull the fabric down, create my stitch. It's very easy. It's just a fun way to manipulate fabric to give texture. Now I can leave this just like this, but I think I'm going to pull this down and open this little slash mark as well and just tack it down. And I can do the same thing up top here. I'll knot my thread on the back, and now I have a little reference to keep with my tools of a different way to add texture to my slow stitching pieces. So that's how I created the textured element today for my tag. I hope you found it useful, and it's kind of interesting and very unusual. Thanks for joining me today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe.